Hey guys, today I'm sitting down with the great Ramiz Hakim, and this is Justin Brock, of course. This is the production for the Medicare Monsters coaching group, and I really wanted to get Ramiz in here to help give us some perspective from the final expense side of things, which honestly is pretty seamless. It seems to me that if you can do final expense, you could do Medicare. If you can do Medicare, you can do final expense over the phone. Once you know how to present, then you learn that other product, and it's basically the same conversations with a little bit of technical differences. But I think having Ramiz on and me and him talking about it is going to be, impactful to those people who are on one side of the aisle and want to do more on the other side, or just be able to do both simultaneously. So great to have you, Ramiz. Thank you so much for being on. It's a pleasure to sit down with you. You're like a celebrity. I don't even think you realize how many people look up to you in the industry.
Well, I appreciate that, Justin. And, a lot of people look up to you too, man. And so I'm humbled that you would ask me to come on here. I told you beforehand, I said, you tell me what's on limits and what's off limits. And you said, dude, free reign. I'm like, man, this is the kind of guy I like to hang with. So I'm good, brother. I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I want to create a real transparent, thing. We do like try not to say company names and stuff, but you don't have to say a company name for people to figure out who you're talking about a lot of times. I know a little bit of background for people that don't know you, which I think most of them do, but I like to do this. This is what I did when I interviewed Cody. I'm going to give you my understanding of your background. You fill in the blank. Okay. So Ramiz Hakim, what I know about him is he had this idea years ago. Him and some other guys, I believe, that are friends of his or partners, had this idea that final expense could be sold over the phone. And he talked to a lot of carriers, and everybody just kept laughing in his face. And finally, somebody gave him a shot, and he like that. What's the Eminem song where he talks about Dr. Dre and he says, he gave me a shot and I lit a fire up under his ass. You lit a fire up under the ass of this insurance company, and it's turned into this huge, monster machine. North Star Insurance Advisors, a great program for people that are trying to get in the business, and there's a lot of these organizations just bring you in and just kind of like, yeah, sell insurance. Here's a contract. I'll give you top comp. Bye. But you guys have a system where people can come in and learn how to sell. And it's, it's a good system. It's similar to ours. Where ours is a much smaller shop, but similar concept. I bring people in and they have good leads to work, and they have a system where they can learn in. And I believe that that's very important for somebody that's coming into the business. So anyway, I ramble a lot, but that's what I think is Ramiz comes in, and people were laughing, and now Ramiz is laughing because it did work. And now there's probably a ton of carriers that want a piece of it. And he's like, I don't know, because I got my guys that actually were with me from the get-go. So you fill in the blanks there, Ramiz. Is that accurate?
I mean, it's pretty spot on, to be honest with you. And yeah, you're right, man. I started off face-to-face, and I just very quickly saw, like, okay, I could see myself doing this, but I'm not enjoying this drive time, and I'm not enjoying necessarily being in the kinds of homes that I'm in because I'm in final expense, and I didn't really enjoy some of the no-shows. And so I'm like, there has to be a way to do this over the phone. And you brought up something that no one's ever done before in a live interview like this. And people always ask me, well, why do you only work with one carrier? And my answer is always, well, I only choose to work with the best. But you brought up something. They were the carrier that gave me a shot. And I've been with them since the beginning. I've never, ever, ever sold a telesales product with another carrier. And I remember the people's names that laughed at me 10 years ago. They still work at the same companies. And those same people are calling today trying to get us to work with them. And you're right. I do laugh at them because it's hilarious.
It's hilarious, man. I can, it's like the, there's a song, I don't know if you know who Juice WRLD is. And this is my second rap reference. Oh no, look like I'm a rap fan. I kind of am. But, Juice WRLD has a song where he redoes the graduation song. And like the first line is, This one's for the girl in my math class. I'm broke, or you're broke and I'm rich. I guess I had the last laugh. And so those companies are like that girl in your math class, man, that, we're laughing at them now.
Yeah, I'll give you a third rap reference.
Okay.
Mike Jones has a song called Back Then. Back then you didn't want me. Now I'm hot. You're all on me. Okay.
You opened up your live the other day with that song. And when I heard it, I bet I was like, this was a strategic selection.
It really, really was.
So that's awesome, man. That's awesome. So yeah, so I had a little bit, somewhat similar. My dad was a Medicare supplement agent. So one thing that I had going for me is I went into a niche, and there was a little bit of training on the forefront as far as he would point me in the right directions, help me with carrier selections, some of the things I didn't have to. But the first thing he did was like, all right, this is how you sell Medicare. You buy these direct mail leads and you go knock on the door and you say, did you fill this out? And then you wedge your foot in the door and you get in the house. And I'm not saying it didn't work, but the same thing is I kept saying there's got to be a better way. I was finding out, I'm like, there are these mega call centers in Medicare at the time that were doing it over the phone. And I was like, how are they able to do it? And I'm not. Like, and then you could say, oh, they got tons and tons of money, but they're writing the same people. The same people were there. They were just figuring out how to get them to do the business over the phone. And I was like, there's not really anything missing here except they have taken the time to figure out the process. So I did the same thing where the first thing I did, and then you hit on this a lot too, is, a lead source is very important. Anybody that's used to doing direct mail, you can quantify a smaller amount of leads by being a little bit forceful and having that face-to-face presence where people don't want to be rude and they will let you in the house a lot of times. On the phone, it's click, click, click. They can hang up on you, so it's more of a process. But the first thing that I figured out was like, I have to have a lead flow that doesn't revolve around, buying from a vendor in any way. So I got really fortunate. That was when Facebook had first launched their leads platform or their ads platform, and I got in early there, and it was going really well. Had I known how good I had it at that time, I would have spent a lot more money.
Yes.
But we, I was doing it that way, and then getting these leads, getting them to call me. And then what I didn't even figure out, and this is what I preach to a lot of people now, is the branding behind it of what we did lives today. People have been seeing ads for 6-7 years straight now, and you use that same person or name. It's like these Medicare commercials you see with Joe Namath and the doctor. They have the one that has the doctor. Nobody even knows who he is. He's not a celebrity, but he's a doctor, and he's on there so much that eventually people are like, I don't know who this freaking doctor is, but I've seen him 100 times on TV. I better call them and see what they have going on. So, but anyway, and not for me to talk, people came here to hear you. So on by the same account, you had the same kind of experience where you didn't want to do that and you started it. When you started going to carriers, before you did that, did you sit down and come up with a plan for this to happen, or how did that evolve?
Well, no insurance agent ever sits down and puts together a plan. So the answer is no. Okay.
You're up.
I knew I grew up with immigrants from Israel. Okay. All my family immigrated here from Israel, and they stumbled into the restaurant business. And so I grew up, my brothers and I, this is before my sister was born, we grew up in the back of a restaurant. We would wake up at 4 a.m, we'd get ready for school. We would go in the back of the restaurant and sleep literally on cardboard until about 7. And then my mom would take us to school. We would after school, we'd come back to the restaurant and do our homework literally on cardboard boxes. So I saw my parents really be slaves to their business. And you can ask any of my brothers, both of them, we did not want to get into business because we saw business as no time with your family, struggling to make ends meet, high turnover, stress. We didn't want nothing to do with it. So when I got into the insurance business, and that's a story in and of itself, I knew that in 10 years, I did not want to end up like my mother and father were. And so very quickly I knew, okay, what am I good at? I'm good at selling. So how do I put myself in more opportunities to sell and then give all this other work that I didn't enjoy doing, that my manager was teaching me, this is how just you do it, but I wasn't even good at it and it took away from generating new revenue. How do I take that stuff, find someone else to do it so that I can just generate more revenue? And so I don't think I went in there necessarily with a plan, but I went in there with a feeling of, I know what this will look like if I'm not careful, and I very quickly need to find ways to have other people do this work for me. So the first person I hired was actually my mom, who taught me, you know, how not to run a business to an extent. They're great business owners, but to an extent. And we built it from there, you know. And I hired my mom because I couldn't afford to pay anybody, to be honest with you.
We've all done it. My brother works for me. I know how that works.
So,
but yes, that's so you hired your mom and started to scale. At that point, had you gotten I won't name carriers, but your core carrier partner, had that combination happened yet, or is that you kind of starting to do it using old school company systems and begin to know, okay, I need a company that's going to evolve with me?
This was still face-to-face at the time. I was still face-to-face. And so what happened was we did build a little agency in Dayton, Ohio, and people got hired to work my system. You know, we had a marketing staff, preset appointments. You'd go out in the field. You'd come in on Monday, get all your supplies, and by Friday, you'd come back in with all your apps. We had people that would process them for you, do all your service calls. We had people that would deliver policies for them. You know, we just sell. But we knew that there was a better way, and the marketing is usually the more difficult part. Well, I already had the marketing part down. We just had to figure out a different way of selling, and we were able to do that, and then, you know, successfully just continue to do it the right way from the beginning. But I'll make one point, Justin, because I think people have this misconception. Oh my goodness, it must have been so hard. It was so much easier at the beginning when it was me and like 3 people than it is today. Like, people see today and think, oh, I want that so bad. And that's cool. Like, you should want it, but it's way, way, way more stressful now than at the beginning. Yeah. And these people that are running these monster organizations, I'm not even talking about me. I wouldn't say I'm a monster organization, but there's other companies that are much larger. When you meet those people and get to know them, they're no different than you and I. They're no different than the people in this program that you have or that are watching this. They're the same people. It's just that they have just one more degree to them, just one more click to the gear. And it's the biggest difference that you'll find between the guy that's been in the industry for 20 years and is still running direct mail, is still knocking on doors, is still experiencing some of the stuff that I wanted to get away as fast as possible. That guy that's been doing that and the guy that's building something, it just a little bit more, and it's made a world of difference.
It's like an insatiable appetite for improvement. Everything can be done better. It's like North Star has created a great system, but I know you guys are continuously looking for a way to take it to the next level or to do things better. And I know exactly what you mean by, you know, looking at things. There are times, and I talk to my wife about this all the time. You know, I talk to other agents. Me and Baish talk about this. There are times where we're sitting there thinking, you know, it is really stressful to grow this organization. When I was just a singular producer at X income, was I happier than being at this income, but with all these people kind of reliant on me at the top, or me at anywhere in the, you know, that pyramid, if you will. I hate to say pyramid, but you know what I mean? Like, you know, when you feel like, you know, I think good leaders feel like the people that depend on them, that they're responsible for in some way, and making sure that, you know, that if something goes wrong in their life, it's not because you had a shortcoming or you didn't allow them to, you know, grow or do as well as they could. So I get completely what you're saying. There's a lot of stress that goes into running a large business, and the more people that are involved in it, and even as you create levels where you have people in between you and people that are trying to help you, somehow it just doesn't seem. It seems like you can start to organize your time more and more efficiently, but it still doesn't take away all the stress of it. It's almost like it compounds it.
It's a different kind of stress, but it's a good stress. Don't get me wrong, but it's different. You know, the stresses that we have now, like I just had to move 300 agents and 100 and some support staff in seven different locations plus our home office in 3 days to their own homes. Like that's dang stressful. And that fall, like nobody was prepared for that, right? So like everyone's looking up to say, okay, what's the solution to this? Right. And so if you've built a good system, everything usually could run really well. It's just that when that wrench gets thrown in there, now it's like there's so many people counting on me to deliver and do it right. That's where the stress comes in. But that's a good stress. Like that it's for some people it's a craving. Like give me more of that, you know?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. When I'm not busy, for some reason I don't have, like I operate at a much higher capacity, running from meeting to meeting where I'm always like a little bit late. It's not that I'm late because I was twiddling my thumbs watching some TV show. It's because I'm leaving the last meeting that I had or the last conversation or the last sales call, whatever it was. But I operate better like that. If I'm not busy, I almost get into like this daze, like, what am I doing? You know, what, you know, so I need that. I need that. So I completely get what you're saying. You know, as far as when you guys started transitioning eventually more and more to the phone, and it took a lot of, you know, the confusion of some things away, but added to another thing. As you develop the process and tweak it, the process where you're at now on the phone to the process that you started with, I'm assuming it's been ever evolving since to make sure it's a better and better process. But how long did it take before you got it to where you thought, okay, this is a good process, a good system for us?
I mean, we always felt like it was good. You know, the moment when you make your first sale, I'm like, okay, we got a shot at doing something here because nobody was doing it at the time. Right. And to a degree, I think that we had an advantage because we were able to dream up everything that we wanted to do. Now people look to North Star and think, well, that's the model. Well, I didn't have the model. So I was able to just dream. And I'm not saying ours is necessarily the best model. I just think it's the best model for final expense that's out there right now. Mm-hmm. And so I think a great organization understands that you always need to be getting better. And we've always just tried to tweak it. Because you see, I mean, if you're spending money in marketing, you see these different trends in the marketing space. We used to do cold calling, and then we did avatar leads, and then we did press one leads, and then we did offshore marketing, and then we bot leads, and then we did Facebook, and then we're always ever, and so that changes this fabric that's woven within your organization where things have to shift so that you have the same seamless process for that client. Everyone's using the same language through the client experience. So I felt like it was good at first. I feel like it's way better now, but it's going to, in the next 18 months, it's going to be something different. We're going to be making some changes, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think so. I think this coronavirus mess has actually created a buzz where, you know, carriers and IMOs and all this, you hit on it, they're like more than ever seeing the necessity of change. The funny thing is, and you hit on this too, was all of them coming out like, this is how you do it. And it's like, how the hell do you know how to do it? No, you're not doing it. You're not doing it. Me with our small little office is doing it more than you're doing it. Like, calm down with the, like, you know, like we know how to do it. And then they're putting out stuff like, use this software for, you know, they're talking about using Zoom for things. And one of the things I've noticed with Zoom is like trying to do video conferencing. First of all, we don't do video conferencing. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but we don't do video conferencing with the client. It's just too much, I feel like, to have to worry about trying to get them to do that. We try to make it a complete auditory, you know, conversation. But they're sending out emails telling people to use Zoom to get, I'm like, imagine the agent that's just now trying to learn telesales, and then he's trying to get some old lady in her house to download Zoom on her computer, and then it's popping up and saying stuff like, you know, if you download this, you're going to screw up your computer. And then, you know, she's like, you're trying to hack me, you know? I'm like, these people telling them that they're going to do more damage than good because they don't really know what they're talking about. And it's interesting that they didn't go after people that were doing it to create the training on how to do it. You know, they could have easily found like somebody running a successful call center and, you know, paid them for some sort of training or something to put together to send to their hierarchy. They didn't do that. They just said, let's just wing it. We know some guys and they do this. No, they don't. That's not what they're doing.
Well, we know most carriers are very incompetent when it comes to how to sell insurance, okay? They don't even know how to service after we sell them. They jack that up half the time anyways. And so all you have to do is just look at any organization that sells over the phone. Name it, mortgages, call it ADT or DirecTV. Like there's no call center that has a 100-yard green screen over a line of cubicles so that everybody can do Zoom calls with the people. Like that's the incompetence of the industry, that someone would have the nerve to send, and these poor people that just don't know any better, that just got recruited, they're in the business for a month, and they're like buying green screens and webcams and Zoom, and then they're like, well, this ain't working. Well, you're doing it wrong. Like, oh, you told them wrong, and you never even did it before. So it's something that is very irritating to me, as you can see, because it doesn't have to be that difficult, man. Just look outside of the insurance industry. Look at the people that are selling My Pillow. Okay, people are buying pillows. They never even put their head on it or touched it, and they're not doing a Zoom call showing you how fluffy the pillow is.
Well, you know, a really funny one was the infomercial on Snuggie, the Snuggie.
Yeah.
You know how many they sold in the first year?
I can't even. I have 3 of them, so I don't know.
Well, there's a good portion of them. No, 22 million individual units in the first year.
Amazing.
It's crazy. So I'm like, if those guys can come up with some goofy concept and hire some third world country to manufacture it for pennies on the dollar and sell 22 million of them on infomercials, like, and you guys can't sell, you know, things that people have to have and need, that, you know, but it's a phone conversation. So, you know, there's things that I bring up because that's the way I think about them. And I know that there should be perception, but like in the Wolf of Wall Street, you know, old Jordan Belfort, the way that they, you know, of course they were doing some very crooked things, but the phone conversation concept and the way that they organized and orchestrated the call lays out a pretty good blueprint for how you psychologically talk to people. And as long as you're actually doing things that are benefiting them and selling them products that they need and want and not ripping them off, utilizing those same concepts is already there as a blueprint. You never saw them having to do any kind of screen shares. Of course, it wasn't even available then, but still, like, and I think that when they try to say that, like, well, this is how you create the trust. You can create the trust by talking to someone and just being a real honest person. Of course, it's awkward in the beginning. So we get through this beginning period where we demonstrate our knowledge base in a way that is, so those are the way I think about it, is as I'm talking to them, I just kind of get through their rebuttals just like I would if I was at the door with them, long enough to continue to talk, to illustrate that I have knowledge on this topic and that I am, you know, the best person to help them with this information. But I do it in a very just polite and, you know, nice way, like, you know, so that over time, like, their barrier tends to diminish because they're thinking, well, he does know a lot more about this than I do. And if he was really a scam artist, boy, what an elaborate scam for him to just be the nicest guy sharing all this free information with me before anything, you know. So it doesn't seem like it's very difficult to tear down that barrier just by being a real nice human being and following a couple of little psychological kind of principles to keep them on the phone long enough to demonstrate that you're not trying to rip them off or scam them. Because that's really what they're reluctant of, is you do it to trust you. And once you can get the name of the game for me to make them trust me is to keep them on the phone long enough to demonstrate that I'm trustworthy. And you can't keep everybody on the phone. Some people just hang up regardless. But if you have enough of them, you can get people to stay on the phone with you long enough to demonstrate your knowledge of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think to say what you're saying differently is you have to very quickly position yourself as the subject matter expert and then start building rapport with them. Just like you would expect from any other subject matter expert. When you go to the doctor's office, why do people leave their doctors? Either they don't see them as the subject matter expert, he's an idiot, I don't like him, or he has bad bedside manner, he breaks rapport with you. So for those two things, you're going to leave, you're not going to go to that doctor anymore. Well, it's no different for any profession. Same thing with insurance. So how do I position myself as the subject matter expert? I'm the guy you want to talk to because I'm the best in the business. Mm-hmm. And then still have the wherewithal to listen to the customer, show a genuine interest, share parallel stories with each other so that they feel like they know me, they like me, and they trust me. Man, if you can position yourself as the subject matter expert and build rapport, you could do pretty much everything else wrong and they'll still buy from you.
Initially, you were talking about the different lead sources you went through. A few years ago, I had hired people to just telemarket raw data for me in states. And I remember early on when I started calling the people that they were giving me as leads for that, I had this, it was turning 65 data. So I was trying to, do their initial Medicare supplement, get a word of the compliance police. We were cold calling for med sup. People get irritable about that concept, but it was for med sup. So I get this lead on the phone. It was one of the first ones I did, and I just hey, I'm calling you. Johnny talked to you and said that you were turning 65 and did have some questions about the plans. And then I didn't really give her any time to talk, but just started getting right into saying, what kind of coverage do you have now, and just kind of get through that initial portion where they really want to get off the phone with the guy trying to sell them something long enough to illustrate that I knew what I was talking about. By the end of the call, she was like a best friend. I mean, because when you keep them on the phone long enough to, quickly get into the part where they begin to think, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about, and he's coming up with some things that are making me think of more questions. Then it turns into a conversation. Then you're laughing, you're learning about what each other has done, where you've been. You share, like you're saying, share stories. Like this lady, I remember her and her husband owned a tattoo parlor, and you remember them, and it almost like, and I think that it helps too to just genuinely enjoy that, because it helps you stay involved in that call and be just as interested in it as you want them to be. And by the end of it, I remember, her saying, man, I am so glad that Johnny called me out of the blue and got my information and gave it to you. We didn't know who we were going to use for this. I never thought it would be over the phone, but, this has been really enjoyable. You've helped me so much and answered all my questions. And it all came from a cold call just by knowing this lady's birthday. It ended up doing her and her husband. So, but I still remember those calls. And so, and that's not a fluke. That's just a numbers game and a process, and believing that everybody on the other end of the line is somebody that can be a client that is wanting your services and that you can help. And every time they pick up, you're believing this is going to be the one. This is going to be the one.
Yeah.
And I know, I'm preaching to the choir, but I just feel like people, a lot of the agents that I'm trying to teach them about telesales, I just think that they have to know that it's possible so that they're confident enough to give it a real go. And, so, what you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. I mean, so here's a question maybe we can dialogue on. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people, I've never met a salesperson who was a dud that didn't have a personality of some kind, right? And there's a lot of people that get into the business and they're just not good salespeople. So here's what I've just told people, like because you got to build rapport, but like if you're not naturally good at building rapport and then you're forcing it over the phone, it's going to be so obvious. The client is going to smell that a mile away and then want nothing to do with you. Right. So how do you train someone to be a likable person? Like that is the biggest, I believe, the biggest differentiating factor between the guy that does really well. It's a big one. The guy that does well and the guy that doesn't do well. And so people ask me, well, I'm doing this. I'm doing everything you're saying. It's like, yeah, dude, but you're just not likable. Well, how do I become likable? I don't know. Go to church. Go ask your pastor. Like, he might help you with that. It ain't me, brother. I barely like you as it is, and I'm making an oath for it. So that's a big part of it. that people got to come to grips with. Because see, in the insurance business, this is the one thing I don't like about it, is there's so much competition for any loser organization that wants to hire any loser. And so all these guys that are licensed, they get this cocky mentality that I am a valuable commodity to the industry, when in all reality, like, you're really not. Like, you wouldn't make it in a real sales organization where, like, you actually have to follow a structure and actually hit quota, and you have to actually hit numbers. Like, you wouldn't make it there. You see, the final expense specifically, you got me preaching now, Justin. Final expense specifically is the payday loans of the finance niche, okay? Just because you're in finance does not mean you're making big bucks. You could be working at a cash advance and say, oh, I'm a loan officer. No, man, you're getting paid minimum wage. Well, final expense many of times is the default position for failed insurance agents. They start with, how do I do annuities? How do I do long-term? Okay, that didn't work out. Well, okay, how about Medicare? How about, no, that didn't work out. Okay, well, how about, I guess I'm just going to have to do final expense. That happens. And so the organizations that do well are the ones that are able to take those people and train them to be monster salespeople. And that's what, if you're in final expense or you're in phone sales specifically, we're talking phone sales, find the guys that are doing it and then lean into those people. Don't find the guy that's going to give you a contract. There's a million of those people, a million of them. That's the last thing you need to worry about, is find the guy that's going to make you successful, not the guy that's going to pay you the highest commission. They're the worst ones. If they lead with, oh, I'm going to pay you 140%, you run away from those people. Those are the ones you don't want, okay? Yeah. Find the guy that's going to say, I'm going to make you the most money. I'm going to show you how to make the most money. Those are the people you want to partner up with.
Yeah. When you were hitting on, being, people that come into the industry and are duds and aren't likable. I used to follow for a long time, Gary V, all those kind of guys. You hear these punch phrases they do. And Gary V was always talking about being self-aware. So, a lot of these guys will come in and they are completely unaware of who they are and what they bring to the table. I know, what a lot of my weaknesses are. So I lean on the strengths and hopefully can hire other people to help me with what my weaknesses are. My strength is I can multitask a lot of things, but I might forget about paperwork and follow-up stuff. So I'm trying to get somebody else to do that with me, for instance. Whereas other guys might be the opposite. They might not be the sales type guy, the guy that can have a conversation with a brick wall, or, so they might want to start an organization and hire the salespeople. But there is a self-awareness aspect of it. And if you can turn a true dud into a stud, I mean, like you are a commodity. That is a commodity to the industry. It's someone that can actually polish shine up a turd and turn it into something, worthwhile. But because we've had, normally this is something I think we're fortunate is at our size, we can be selective in our hiring. I imagine when you get to your size, sometimes you're hiring a batch of people at a time and you get a kind of a mixture of everything, so you're having to really, lean on training this guy to be more likable on the phone, and then this guy over here to slow down and actually get the right information. I've met a lot of guys that are so gung-ho sales. They're like, I just sold those people such and such. I'm like, where's the application? Well, I sold it to them. We'll worry about that part later. Like, you didn't really sell anything if you didn't get the bank draft info, buddy. So they're the other side of the spectrum. But no, I completely am with you, man. There is just a ton of misinformation, and final expense seems to me to bear the unfortunate burden of dealing with the most crappy, agents because like you said, it kind of, it's the recruiting cesspool of agents. This is going to sound, I'm sure someone's going to get mad at me for saying this, but it's the recruiting cesspool of trying to just churn and burn. It's there is one on the group benefit side that does this really bad too. Big company, I won't name their name, but they got a little quack and duck. I'm talking about. They'll churn and burn agents like crazy. but final expense entities will do it like nobody's business. And the more I've gotten into communicating with agents on the agent side, I've seen how many of them have come from these turn and burn final expense models. And now they're trying to get into, other things or find their footing because that wasn't a good model. They were dealing with high chargebacks, low support, no real system, just, go out and knock on the doors of the crappiest trailers they could find and convince people that don't want insurance to give them their banking info. So I applaud, because y'all's system, does bring in agents and have them a quality and quantity lead flow, to where they are constantly in front of people. They can learn their processes. And for many of them, not everybody is going to belong in a call center forever, and not everybody's going to work for me forever. But I think almost everybody would be better starting there. And many of them would probably be better off, probably the majority of them, never leaving, because they'll make more money in that system than they would trying to start their own business. And they find out pretty quick how difficult it is to create a viable lead flow and a system for other agents.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like sales, man. When you bring on a new agent, you just got to set the right expectations with them. So we get commitment from them. This is our mission statement, and this is our core values. Do you fall in line with these set of beliefs? Like, we won't even talk to them until they go through our four core values: trust, enthusiasm, advancement, and money. They got to believe in that stuff, and there's little definitions that go with them. So yeah, you believe in that stuff. Great. Now let's take a predictive index. So I put them through like a DISC assessment, but this is a predictive index. What do they do when they're stressed out? And we gather that information. Then they go through an interview, and then they go through a second interview, but we set very clear expectations with them. This is what you're going to expect. This is your commissions. This is how you get paid. Like, this is what you're probably going to make in your first year. And so when they come in, there's no, ew, this is a call center. It's like, dude, you knew that like before you even applied for the job, as opposed to some other really puffed up recruiting tactics that really paint a very rosy picture. That is possible, maybe, for some. Mm-hmm. Most people don't fall into that. And so I have just found, just like when you make a sale, like, you can't sell a product and say, well, it covers this, because the moment it doesn't cover that, the customer's canceling on you. They're firing you. It's the same way with hiring agents, but we don't find that a lot in the insurance industry, especially in the Medicare side, man. I mean, on the final expense side, excuse me.
Yeah. Well, and it's big on the Medicare side too, because they bring, it's a different picture. They bring you in on the residual pitch. You recruit in like, you're off the street, you need to residual. And I'm not saying the residual side is not great, but it's just as hard to figure out a system and a process and a lead source and a pitch, and putting it together and turning it into a money printing machine by helping as many people as fast as possible, and to be replicable and scalable. Yep. It's not something that everybody can do. I know, the people that make the most money in the industry that I've met own a system that they've created that does that.
Yes.
It's very few people. It's you, me to some extent, Beige, some of these guys that I know that have created these systems. The next like idealistic person that makes the most money, in my opinion, are the top producers within those entities.
That's true.
You see what I'm saying? So like, it's the people that have created the system, that put the blood, sweat, and tears in it, and then the person that worked as hard as they could within that system is the second tier. Yeah. Everybody else is in the third tier, I think.
I would add one more layer in there too. I think it starts first with the guys that are in the niches first, right? Yes. Like you're the Medicare guy. You know what I'm saying? And so like, yeah, I can sell other stuff, but my way in is I'm the Medicare expert. And the more you boil that down, like the niche of a niche of a niche, like I turn away clients. Like, if you don't pass my specific health questions and you need to be guaranteed issue, I won't write you. If you don't have it, if I can't do a bank draft, I will not write you. If you're younger than 50, I won't write you. I just have a very, like a niche of a niche of a niche. This is my target. And then in that, I've built a system where they come in from one side and they come out as a client as the other side. And it's just a factory that's just printing out clients.
Yeah. I know, I agree. And it's another portion of the scalability, because when you're hiring people, you're training them. This is who you're looking for. This is what you're selling them. Like, and there's not all this mystery. And we've built producers that are able to branch outside and sell other products, but we always start with, learn this, master this.
Yes.
We don't come in and be like, okay, you're brand new. So here's how you write med subs. Here's how you write Medicare Advantage. Here's how you write drug plans. Here's how you write health insurance. Here's how you write final expense. Here's how you write term life. Like, what? Who's going to learn all that? It took me, like, I'm still life insurance for me. Like, we write some final expense, but it almost is like it has to hit us in the head, where people are like, somebody's like, I need a burial policy. And I'm like, okay, are you really healthy? Yes, I'm perfectly healthy. I take no meds. I'm like, okay, let's see, what company do I write? Like, it's just, but when they're like, I need a Medicare supplement, and I'm like, I got this, because that's my specialty, So, and of course, agents starting out to write some of those other things too occasionally helps with their flow, because maybe they're not plugged into a system where they have continuous leads and they can keep looking for that perfect prospect. But it is, I think, the people that have made the most money, you're right, are hyper niche focused people that have built a system.
Yes.
Second layer are the people that are the top sales producers in that. I mean, I know guys working in call centers making $250,000 a year.
Oh yeah.
I don't know a lot of street level agents, or like, when I say street level, I don't know a lot of agents with no system and nobody that works for them. And let's be honest, you handing a contract to some guy 47 states away from you is not them working for you. That's you handing them a contract. They're probably not even producing because they have no support or system.
That's right.
What I mean is the singular guy who has nobody working for him. Not a lot of them are making $250,000 a year. There are some, but most of them that are even doing that have been doing it for 2 decades already.
That's right.
It's not people that have can come into it and get to that. But in your center, I would imagine somebody could come in and within 2 or 3 years could be up at that 6-figure level, just by working their ass off.
Oh man, no doubt. I mean, my top earner right now started off as a pre-qualifier for me. And at the time I was paying $10 an hour. $10 an hour. She came in and she said, I really want to take my business to the next level. I really want to try this thing out. She'll make $250,000 this year. She's been with me since the beginning, and she leaves early every Wednesday to go golfing. So it's, it definitely is possible, but it takes a very specific person. That person has discipline. That person has follow through. That person is willing to put in the work. And and I think the system breeds that. But a lot of, I'll just call them like independent agents, they don't have that kind of structure. And if they try to build it, many of them I find, because most salespeople are this way, they just lack the discipline to follow through with that plan. And then no one holds them accountable because I'm independent. So when you're putting into a system, there's accountability, there's a competitiveness to it too, contest and how do I stack up against everybody else? You kind of put all that together and you build this culture that begins to breed very high income earners who, by the way, are getting paid the least amount per deal than anyone else in the industry.
Yeah, but they're making more money because they're in a process where they can scale it and replicate it over and over. Yeah,
exactly.
100% of nothing is a lot, less than 70% of something. So, yeah, I completely understand. I get it. I get the model. I mean, I have LOAs. I guess you would call them captive agents. All these buzzwords that you'll see people in the groups will be like, oh, don't ever assign your commissions. And some of those guys that are saying, don't ever sign your commissions made $26,000 last year. So it's like, and I'm not telling everybody they should assign their commissions. To each his own, whatever floats your boat. If you want freedom and to be broke, great. If you have that extra gear and you want, complete freedom and to build an empire, go for it. Do it. If you want to learn the business and create an income that you can actually sustain the lifestyle you want as fast as possible, you're probably going to be better off finding a good, trustworthy person with a system. And I don't mean a system where they say, yeah, we'll give you this. And then, you buy these leads and then you go out and knock on these doors. Like that. Come on now. That's not the system. That's just the people telling people to do the same thing that they've always been doing. So Last thing I wanted to, it came up to me a minute ago and I lost it because I don't prepare for these things. You know how you said insurance agents never have a plan for anything? I don't. My plan was get Ramiz on and talk to him. He's a likable guy. I'm sure we can have a good conversation about stuff that people would enjoy. So yeah, man, I've just enjoyed it. I've enjoyed you being here. I'm sure that in the future it'd be cool to, get back on and have some more interviews. Some of the helpful conversation I think that we've had here has been good. I may just end up sharing this, with everybody if you don't mind, just as a public video, because I think it's impactful. I think your live the other day, by the way, at one point had like over 400 people watching.
I know.
Not everybody can do that as an insurance agent. So, kudos. I think people really are interested in y'all's system. They see the scalability of it. They see that you're a genuine guy, and you're a family man. And I think that's very important. People like buying from or dealing with or learning from authentic people. You did all of that for free. You even said in your thing that the incentive you had was to laugh in the faces probably of the people that didn't believe in your system and now are all scrambling to create something like it. So I really I enjoyed it as much as I could watch of it the other night. I think it was awesome. And, anytime you want to come on and dialogue like this, I think it's impactful for people. Maybe eventually we could sit down and do something, structured that helps, but that would require me to actually plan something. So I don't know. We'll see. But man, I'm going to wrap it up. I appreciate you being on. I'm sure I'm going to think of something, later that I'm like, man, I wish I'd asked him that. And I wish I took notes, but I think this will be good. And I appreciate you doing it, man.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me. And I appreciate your warm hospitality. I'll just brag on you for just a second. I get invited to a lot of these. Justin's the only one that said, hey man, I'll pay you for your time. How much money do you want? You're the only person that ever asked me that. That says a lot about you. So anytime you want me, I'll be there and I got your back, man. So thanks.
Man, I do value your time. I know you're not, and I think that I appreciate you doing it and not asking for any money, but I would have gladly paid you whatever you asked for because I see the value in it. And I know that you bring a tremendous amount of value to the industry. More than maybe, you're in the top 5 in my book for sure. So.
Okay. Wow. I better.
You really are. You're doing good things, and I hope that you continue to, do things in the agent community. I know your business is booming and everything, but anything that you want to do in the agent community would be well received.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.